All right. We need background music or something. Some like chill jazz. Welcome everybody. We'll give folks a few minutes to join. The meeting is being recorded for those who can't join us today or anyone who wants to kind of come back and go through the details of today's master class. It's only an hour. It's quite a bit to go through in the hour, but then you can go back and that gives you an opportunity to also visit our YouTube channel for WMDD and see this along with many of the other masterclass videos in the past, and then some that will be coming up as well. All right. So give folks how many? We've got some people in here. Well, maybe we'll give them another minute here and get started. So this is going to be kind of I was going to say a light overview, but it's going to be a semi-intense overview of personal branding and identity. This mimics some aspects of what you could expect if you were to join us in like a class, so to speak. I've done many classes on branding and identity over the years, but this gives us a nice little taste of what that is like. And then if you're local or not local, this gives you a great place to start. So that's going to be kind of the gist of things. And let's kind of get into it now. So let's look at the menu for today. All right, so we're gonna try and keep it nice and tight within the hour. And this is kind of what we're going over for the day is for this evening, pardon me, is just going over the basics. You know, what is branding and identity all about? And I think the most interesting part about this will be, you know, if you're coming brand new and you've got nothing, or you're unsure about what is branding identity, or thinking about branding and identity for yourself, is that maybe after this hour you've at least got you've got a little bit stronger idea of what this is all about, this whole branding thing, this branding business. But then you might even have the basis, something to start to get yourself going on your branding. We'll run through, you know, like we see here, how to get started and try to have some fun, you know, try to enjoy the process there. That is important if you can. You know, it's somewhere in all this, the sketches and the struggles, you might even have some fun, hopefully. And then we'll talk about letters, you know, typography, fonts. You can visit a previous WMDD video to learn all about typography, but we'll discuss the relationship between letters, you know, within the logo itself, and how you want to orientate these. And then I'm going to run through something I call my 6-to-1 method. And for any of my past students, this is something you might be familiar with, but now it's going to be open for everybody to kind of see how I've kind of honed this method for branding over the years, and refine that process to help hopefully get you to that final result a little bit sooner. So this is something I developed, you know, working with clients and, you know, myself. And then we'll kind of wrap things from there and open it up. If there's some time, hopefully there'll be a little bit of time for some Q&A. If not, then, you know, we'll make it available in the chat there to have some answers there, or you can reach out to me afterwards. Absolutely fine. So let's get started here with the menu, so to speak. So who am I? You should always question this. Who is that person there? And then why should I be the one to talk about branding and identity? So a little bit of background about myself is I'm it's kind of strange to think about it now. 20 years now in the industry here since moving to Vancouver. My background is I'm an artist, and that's what I've always been, in that creative side there. And I started my journey as an illustrator, working in architecture, working in video games and heavy industry, and kind of, it seems, anything with a screen. I found myself working into that field, and even though my background is in illustration, which does lend itself well to branding and identity. You don't have to be an artist, so to speak, or illustrator. You know, if you're thinking that side, I'm not some fantastic artist or designer like that. It's not always going to be that case. This is still what we're going to talk about today. Something you can develop and work on over time, and then you know, find your own branding. So this is something that's open for everybody. So back to a little bit about my background here. So in Vancouver, my my journey led me to eventually into the software field. You know, the iPhone came out, social media exploded, and then I was working and designing anything on screens, from gambling to video games to software, and that's kind of unexpectedly led me into the post-secondary educational field, where I've been teaching now, I think almost 20 years as well. So it's been great that journey there, working on the educational side and in industry, and then being able to bring what I've done in industry right to that classroom, where you know we're joining with everybody today here as part of Langara's WMDD program. So I've taught in WMDD for a number of years, and it's always great to see that journey of folks like many of us might be today. You're starting off kind of uncertain. You know, what can I do with my brand, my sketches here and there. I want to really hone this and develop this into something that speaks to you, and it's something I get to see in class, and we'll get a little taste of that today. So if you're interested, that's a little bit about me. I've got my QR code there. My LinkedIn is right there. Feel free to connect with me, and many of the others who will be hosting these master classes from Langara. And thank you to Langara for putting this together and everybody connected to make this happen. Really appreciative of that. So let's continue here, and let's talk about some branding. So branding, as mentioned there, it's something that it's not really just for designers. So a lot of people think, oh, branding and what is branding, or what is the brand, what is the identity? This is something that's only for like artistic folks, creative folks. It's not necessarily the case. We have in our WND program designers and developers both now have portfolios, and part of your having your portfolio is a little bit of branding, and that branding, it can be as simple as just your name, but sometimes you want something a little bit more than that. So some kind of background about your personal branding is that even if you have something right now, and I mentioned this in my LinkedIn post for this event, it is something that's going to continuously evolve. It's going to change a lot over time. I will give a preview of my branding at the end of this event here. But even thinking of my own branding, sometimes it's a small change, sometimes it's a huge change. But regardless, it's something that is going to be continuously kind of refined and evolving over time, and that's a good thing. That means it's reflective of your progress, your change in the field, even if your field of study even changes. And like myself, I went from working in exciting video games and a lot of media and film, and then going into UX, and my branding would change and reflect to respond to these changes in industry and what I was doing in industry. And this is something that should be happening with you also. It's always going to be something that evolves with you, and we want it to reflect that. And to kind of add to the background of that, we've got some two famous brands here at the bottom. Well-known brand if you're on one side of the OS kind of of things, or the other, whether you're Windows or Mac, it does not really matter. Both of these have gone through, as we can see here, a lot of changes in their brand over time. And some of them are more dramatic, especially the Apple one in the early days was quite different. But I would say that's not much of a logo. It's more of a complete illustration, and we'll talk about the differences there in a little bit. But we can see, especially with the Microsoft one, where it kind of really did reflect the times of when they were developing and kind of refining their brand. Same thing with Apple, as they refined their brand, and then the errors that they were refining that. And this again might be something that, as you mentioned here, it's going to reflect in you and your branding. So I want to make sure that that's something that's clear and out there, is that this is absolutely something for everybody. It's not just if you're in design or if you're in development, for any kind of business. And it is something very cool to see later on in the end. That you've designed this logo, you've got your branding, your identity all kind of refined, and it's up there on kind of the side of the building, or you see it on letterheads, or something as simple as like your website or your email signature. It adds that little bit of kind of that nice final touch there to your work, and it gives that identity there that sometimes that's all you really need for your business, or in this case for ourselves, because we're designing this for ourselves. And that is a very important part there, because if you're designing for yourself, you have to always think about you. You get to be a bit selfish, I would say, in this case. So I talked to many, of my students in the past, that when you're working on your personal branding, it should this is, if we were thinking about something that you're being marked on, in theory, you should always get a 100% on this, because it's all subjective. It's all about you and how you resonate with this graphic or this text, whatever it's going to be. So it needs to reflect that every single time. So let's go into kind of the differences here, and I'm going to keep it, like I said, kind of very high level here. Just going over the top points. We can always go. We could go and talk about this for hours and hours and hours. There's books and books and books on it. But let's get kind of the basics through here, so that regardless, like I said, of your proficiency level in design, or in background in illustration or art or whatever it's going to be, you like working with a pencil or a pen, or just purely digital. We should be able to get something going today. And I would encourage all of you that. If you're participating with us today, and more in a more active state, or you're watching this later on YouTube with on our channel, something like that, is to get out the pen, get out the pencil, and participate. Go with us here, and see what you can come up with, because that little bit of haste and urgency, that pressure, can sometimes be great to bring out these kind of creative juices, so to speak, for coming up with these ideas. So before we get to the ideas, the exciting part here is let's break down these two sides. So sometimes you hear branding, sometimes you'll hear identity. There's branding identity, or there's just brand. All these kind of like typeface versus fonts, they get mixed up a lot. The, the core of it is here. If we're thinking about just the visual, the logo, whatever that's going to be, we can see that's here on the right side here. That's really how it's being presented. That's that identity. That's what we're seeing, what's being processed there when you're going by it in the bus or the train or your car, whatever that's going to be. It's going to convey something about your brand itself. That is what it's conveying, is that branding. Now we can see on the branding side, that is the kind of the more deeper meaning you could think of it. It's going to be what resonates with that individual when they see it, as well as after they see it. So if I'm driving by and I see this design, the shape of it, or we're going to talk about silhouette quite a bit later on, and many of my past students, they know Tyler always talking about silhouette, silhouette, silhouette. And that's so important, I think, because of the branding. When we see that silhouette, we only can see it for that split second sometimes. What is it going to say to us? How does it stick with us? How are we going to feel about it? What is conveyed from that silhouette? And we haven't thought about colors or anything like that yet, because that's still over in the identity side there. That branding is everything that is, as mentioned, that's that intangible aspect of your brand. And then the identity, that's that tangible, that visual, that aspect that we immediately are brought in with. So I've left a few of these kind of optional here. Sometimes, I mentioned on the vision side of the branding, sometimes there'll be like a statement or a mantra, or there might be a slogan for a particular brand. That's not always going to be the case for your personal branding. And today we're talking about it very much on the personal side, but maybe there's some sentence, there's some few set of words, or a single word that it just sticks with you, and you want to bring some of that out into what it is that you're going to design, or you're going to have designed for you. You always want to write these things down, and keep it all together. And when we think about identity, we're thinking about that logo. If you're struggling with logo, a lot of things I've talked to clients in the past is come up with a mood board, come up with a folder, whatever that's going to be. Start to gather, take photos. You have this incredible device that's always on your person, your phone there. to take these photos and start gathering, what are things that you like. It can be other logos, it can be non-logos, it can be something just static or inanimate. We don't know. It could be just a color. It could be just a shot. And that's what I'm talking about there in the visual, on the imagery side, is sometimes when we think about identity, when we're in regards to branding, it can be like tone, or like a theme, or like you can maybe think of like a filter, something like that. And this is why, you want to start, when you're thinking about your personal branding, gather this information, because then when you do have to come back to, what am I going to think about for my branding, for my identity, that are going to come together for my brand itself, we have something there. You're not just trying to think and remember. We have it. So when you want to get a little bit more serious about your personal brand, I would highly encourage you to, get out that little notebook, start doing those sketches, on the fly when the idea comes to you, any time of day or whatever it's going to be, or you're traveling. Take those photos, because it's going to help you with this refinement process that we're going to go through today. And it's tough, especially when it's your brand. It's very tough because the more critical, more creative you are, the more creative part of me, the more critical you can often be on yourself, and very hard on every little detail, every angle, all these little parts. So the more information that you can get to help you in setting up the branding side, the identity side, the easier it will be when it comes to actually creating the work. So let's continue here. Thinking about the most successful branding, and this is where it can be a little bit kind of muddy again. Is we sometimes compare ourselves to these most iconic brands. I'm not describing the business themselves. We just want to think about the branding today, the visual that we're getting there. That identity that we're getting from each of these. None of them really need to have their name beside it. And this is something I talk about with my classes sometimes, is that unless you have this much weight and fame, you could think, with your brand at the point where it is this iconic, we need to always think a little bit deeper, or think a little bit deeper into what goes behind it. You may have to be a little bit more literal with it. And sometimes it could be a miss, and the next version will be better, the next version will be better, the next version will be better, and that's, like I said, going back, it's something's going to happen anyways. Typically, we're looking at our portfolios every couple years, 2 years or so, to refine them. Your branding can be something that you look at in a similar manner. So look at these iconic ones, and I'm going to bring up that word again. It's that silhouette is something that is so important. There is that if you saw these on an angle, you saw them at a distance, or more importantly, something I will touch on, a little bit later on, when you look at them at scale. Scale is something that I think a lot of the time we don't consider. When it's as small as like the letters on your keyboard, will it still be recognizable? And that is why I've always put so much weight on the silhouette. So when we think about these iconic brands, how well they're recognized, and there's all kinds of background behind each of these designs. But that aside, when we look at them at a distance or up close, or again, if you think of the keyboard or favicon on a browser, to a billboard, how is it going to look? Will it still be recognizable? That part is very, very important. So going more deeper into that, and these questions, I'll leave these on the screen here for a little bit. But again, remember that this will be made available on our YouTube channel. So if you're rushing to write these down, don't worry about it. Just go through, and if there's any thoughts that come through when we're thinking about the space, the industry, who that you're going to be wanting to work with, just write these things down. Just write them down, little point form, whatever is fastest for you. And myself, my background growing up, as an artist, everything is always the fastest with a pencil. So that's where I'm going to go. But you go to whatever kind of medium is fastest for you. And that's I think that's important, is that everyone works in different ways. We're creative in different ways. So as I go through these questions and think about, what is the space that you want to be active in, start thinking about that and just write it down, and then continue with that. When I talk about symbols, iconography, design elements, this can be like I said, something more inanimate, can be something more direct. And we'll see in my logo, I've got a little bit of elements of abstract, and I've got some literal parts in there. And you can take bits and pieces. And with symbols, you do want to, of course, be careful. Look into what is the symbolism behind these things. Does it properly convey what you're trying to say? And this research, it takes time, but it can also be, I think, part of the fun of that consideration and your planning. So platform, now, what I mentioned a little bit there previously on platform is, I think, especially now, since like the web 2 kind of days, we need to really think about scale and your personal branding and identity. That's going to be seen likely on, at the very least, your website, but probably also social channels. Maybe you're going to be putting it onto products or materials or apparel, printed, whatever it's going to be. So you need to always think a little bit larger. Be a little ambitious is kind of what I'm saying there. Ambition for with the applications is good, and you want to think with that's the accessibility of your design. So will it be seen on always on a light background? Will it be seen always on a dark background? We have no guarantee. So you want to always make sure that you're considered all different formats and different ways that people will be able to process that work. So this last note here on the personalization, this is something that we'll see when I show how my logo ended up in the end. This is where you can be more flexible. You can kind of make your choices there if you want to make it really personal, really abstract. And this is where sometimes we'll want to incorporate bits of our cultural background, bits of our something we like, as far as like animals or genres or things like that. But do keep in mind that the further you go into one kind of isolated space, the further you will likely get from that general audience. So there is that risk with that is with your audience. So just keep that part in mind. So let's get into kind of the more fun part here, the brainstorming part. And this is where, again, we're gonna have a little bit of that interaction component coming up here for where you can do some of your brainstorming. All right. So always like emojis. Emojis are fun. So when we're thinking about your branding, you want to imagine yourself not being you, really. You want to be someone on the outside coming in to see. So when I talk about visually captivating, again, that we're thinking back to those iconic brands. How's that silhouette going to be? Is that going to catch the eye, or is it going to be just a bunch of letters I ignore? We don't know. So you want to have something that stands out a little bit. It has some impact, and that goes right into, again, what I'm talking about next is on that silhouette, and I'm going to say silhouette a lot. And another reason I talk about silhouette is that if we think about the most basic silhouette, just black and white, grayscale, even, you might say, the unreliance on color, but still recognizable. These are fantastic traits of a strong brand, strong branding, strong identity brought together, that we don't rely on color, we don't rely on text, we don't rely on descriptions, and that's going to come from those two kind of working together. Now, the simplicity I'm speaking to kind of refers back to, if you're familiar with the very first Apple logo, it was just the drawing there of the apple falling out of the tree. We want to have a logo or a brand, more specifically, that has recognition. We don't want to have a drawing. It doesn't need to be like a simplified painting that's brought into kind of logo. That is not going to be something that has that strong silhouette, has that strong recognition. I like the little kind of graphic I put here. It's just a blur of content there. This is going to be very, very tough to be able to convey any kind of that branding and identity to your clients, to whoever is looking at your work. And then, of course, we talked about here reflection, and we'll get more deeply into the reflection shortly here as we start to brainstorm, what resonates and what speaks to you, as long as we did mention the responsive side. But really now, like I said, there's no reason to not have that consideration within your personal brand. Always think on the corner of your website on social, but sure, it looks great on desktop. How's it going to look on a mobile device? So many users are mobile devices now. All of us on mobile devices, I would say, really. So you need to have that always in mind. Do I have a longer format or a stacked format that is for our desktop viewers when they're looking at your portfolio, something like that there. They're visiting your social channel, your YouTube, whatever it is that you are branding for your personal work. How's that going to work across all those different platforms? It's very important that you make it as kind of capable to adapt to all these different layouts, digital and non-digital. Now, this last little bit here, it's not a must, but I would say that after many years of working with clients on their projects, and then working with students, helping them develop their own personal branding, is that we've seen every possible, at this point, intersection and overlapping and non-overlapping version of letters, and this is kind of the go-to, I would say, for your first steps to branding yourself. Is I'm gonna take all the initials of my name and kind of throw them together. And I was guilty of that at the beginning as well. Before I was taught a little bit more about what branding was really about. Branding and identity was really about when I was first getting into the field. I just threw a T and an H together. But you can go so much further than this. Push yourself, really push yourself to go more beyond more than just having some letters and putting them together. So think something abstract and something maybe a little bit different, something that is more you, is kind of what we're going at. And let's kind of develop that here. So this is that part where I mentioned earlier, if you've got your pencil, your pen, whatever it is, something to start writing down, go ahead and let's kind of get some of these kind of brain juices going here. We're gonna do kind of like a brainstorm sketch, and a lot of people, they when they start thinking about, I'm gonna do some branding work for myself, I'm gonna make my logo, put it everywhere, all these kinds of things. They go right into the sketching, and they just start sketching, and they do that first sketch, and oh, it's perfect, it's done. uh Almost never is that going to be the final one, or even a very good one. You need to really think about it a little bit, and this is a great way to start, whether you're struggling or not struggling, is to think about, what are some core values, what is important to you and yourself. And the answers to these may directly go right into your work. They may just be something that uh, disappears. There may be something that comes back later on, but this is again to get that thought process going. So you don't have to wait for me. You can go ahead and write ahead and start off. Go ahead, list three minimum, at minimum, core values that you have in yourself, and they don't have to be anything that could be turned into a graphic or a visual. And the same thing, list three aspects that you want to communicate with your branding. And we'll talk about how the graphic itself, and even the typeface, the distance of letters, all this does convey quite a bit. But for now, just what are some aspects that you would want to communicate and convey in yourself? Now, I was going to say let's have a couple minutes. So I'm going to probably be talking about 3 minutes, at least 3 minutes here. So as I'm talking, you go ahead and you write and write and write. So again, three core values, at least three aspects that you want to communicate with your brand, and two goals that you want to convey. And a goal could be, and I'll reveal my answers here myself in a little bit here. I put them on the slide. They could be just something that is about the work you do. They could be something about you as a person. They could be something about the business that you're trying to create, that for others to see. But right now, we're just going to keep it in this word format ideation stage. So now, thinking about your mission, we talked a little bit of the mission previously. Sometimes we have a phrase or something that goes with your brand, something like that there. It's not always a must, but at this point, sometimes it is helpful to write something out, a sentence that says something about you, says something about what you want to do. And like here, I've opened that question up. It's a very, very open question. What are you and your work or your brand that you are trying to establish here and refine? What is that about? So just think about that a little bit. Doesn't have to be a deep answer, not yet. This is something that again will change likely over time. This last one is kind of an odd one. I find sometimes, especially when I'm in class with students on this one, is why do I have to talk about an inanimate object? Why do I talk about a living thing? I like bears, I like cats, I like birds, whatever it's going to be. Does this have to really be represented on your brand? No, it does not. But it helps with that thought process. It helps to bring out possibly and even reveal parts about your thought process, your approach with the design and with your brand. And our brains are these fantastic calculating machines. They do so much just in the background. We don't know about it. And this is part of getting that background to do that work for us, I guess more accurately. So I'm sure I was talking about 3 minutes at least there. So myself, and I see a couple questions coming up in the chat there, and hopefully throw all your questions in there. I'll try to answer those maybe at the end, but always put your answers up there, or your questions, pardon me, up there, if you are participating with us live today, so that we don't forget the questions. I want to make sure we can answer them. So if you did get some writing down there, fantastic. If not, no worries. This is something you can come back to and then work on in your own time. So how did I approach this? And I thought back to when I was reworking my current brand, which I'll reveal at the end. And this was quite a while ago. I did do kind of a micro revision on it. Just spacing was bothering me, and this is where I mentioned, when you're doing it for yourself, you get very, very critical, very, very picky. And so I did like a minor update, but sometimes you do a major update. And this was thinking back to when I wanted that major overhaul. You see some of these things attach well, some do not attach that well. And we'll see at the end how I ended up finalizing the design, what actually came over here. I'm going to pick on one of these just to kind of give some background on how this can help out. So I remember I was thinking back to way when I was kind of college days. I had this great instructor that she really kind of pushed us to think more outside of the box. And I remember when I was approaching one of my early designs, they were not very good. I would say they're actually quite bad, thinking back, but I was young, and we all have to start somewhere. The horse one was an odd one that came up, but and it was just something that I grew up with. I was very fortunate to be around them growing up and have a family that was kind of knowledgeable in that space. And when we think about just the animal on its own, yes, it is just an animal, but it also can symbolize a lot of stability. They're quadruped, they're on 4 legs, so there's a lot of stability. There's a lot of strength in them. They have a lot of kind of a bold stature to them. And this, you don't think about it that much at the time, but why would that, of any animal, you're around so many animals when you're young, why would that have resonated with me? And maybe that was something that resonated with me, and that is what kind of trickled down into what ended up being my design process later on. So these kind of thought explorations, these brainstorming that we do here, this is why we do it. Is you want to think about these words that come up and how are they going to come through at the end. What are they going to do with us with our final design? So let's continue here. And I talk a lot about shape and the silhouette. I'm talking silhouette all the time here, but thinking of just the most basic shape, and I like to keep things in grayscale. I recommend that you also, although you should think about colors and what colors work with you and what colors resonated. And we could have a whole, maybe there'll be another masterclass on color theory itself and the kind of the backgrounds and the voices of the colors. But when we think of grayscale, I like to work in that, and I recommend everyone usually works in grayscale at the beginning because this is the best way to not rely on any color and rely purely on the defined shape. And we look at these shapes, they all are kind of basic here. The first, the square and the square with the radius corners here, they seem very similar, but they do convey quite a bit. And looking at the leftmost one here, the box or the rectangle, sometimes it becomes. Think about like a lot of the brands you might be walking past, or a lot of times when we're talking about designs of brands inside of just a square or a rectangle, a lot of post-secondary institutions, a lot of banks, a lot of anything to do with money or insurance, a lot of these brands will place their, or these companies actually will place their brand on this kind of background, or that is a part of the design itself. Because as we can see at the bottom, those little, I just listed a couple quick ways that these shapes speak, is when you have a design inside of a square, inside of the circle, inside of the rounded square, they tell us a lot. And in the case of the square, we think about that shape. It's not going anywhere. It's not rolling. It doesn't even move a little bit like that second rounded square because it has those sharp edges. And that is where, we think about those are very intense words there, that the unchanging and dependable. Now, whether the actual company reflects that, or that's a side, but when you think about your personal brand, if you want to convey that kind of confidence, that stability, quite literally stability in that square shape, this is something you can consider. When we round it, we soften it a little bit, we humanize it a little bit, and it has been, I mentioned, a tech associated, but it still has the kind of the strength and the confidence of the hard square, but rounding it kind of modernizes it, softens it a little bit, makes it more approachable. So just that little radius can be quite a difference. And when I have these arrows going across the screen there, it's not to say that you should go from the square to the rounded to the ball and to the lightning bolt. This is just the way we internalize these shapes comes across to others as well. So when we get to the circle, it's like the ball, it's round, it moves, it's going to adapt, and it's going to be something that's extremely approachable. And again, we don't want to associate it with any particular companies. We're just thinking about ourselves and the core silhouette. But when we look at others where they have used it, this speaks to us, and this kind of these little details come through. Now, when I mentioned previously about really going hyper personal, making something super abstract, very, very different, that is kind of our lightning bolt here. There's not really a basic shape for that, because there should not be a basic shape for something like this. So when you go that level, it's going to be, I like the intrigue here, the creative aspect, but it can be a little bit too far. So always think about that there. Let's I would want us to sketch there, but Tyler's doing what Tyler does, and I've been talking and getting kind of excited with my hands here. So we'll just keep going with this. If you have some sketches though, if you have been, you're filling that notebook, start looking at it. Do you see any of these shapes within there? And if not, sketch. Like I mentioned, you always sketch, always sketch. Once you finish sketching one page, you fill a second page and you fill a third page. It's all about sketching and sketching and sketching. The more ideas you have, the more we can get through, the more we can cross off, and the closer we'll get to that final design. So let's talk about the logos themselves. And when we're talking about logo, there is a couple ways that you can approach it. It's going to have the logo and the text, just the logo. Many options here. So I'm just kind of putting the basics out here for us to see. The arrangement is quite important, I would say. When it's just the logo, when I have there, when it's just the logo, I'm quite serious when I say it does put an immense amount of weight or dependency on that single graphic, that single visual. So maybe it is that iconic, maybe it is that recognizable. If it is that recognizable and iconic as a personal brand, Is it recognizable for the right reasons? Is it going to convey, what you wanted it to speak about? We talked about previously about that brainstorming. So this is a little bit of a risk. When it is just in its responsive state, though, absolutely you can always just have the logo in itself, because it does open up into a larger version. And that's where these ones here on the left are a little bit safer, especially at the beginning. So I just put your name there. It doesn't have to be your name. It can be just a name. It can be you in design or creative or development, whatever it's going to be. But usually the logo with some text is a little bit more clear, and clarity is never a bad thing. Now I have these three kind of arranged here. My recommendation, and this has been quite consistent over the years, is always to kind of arrange it below or beside. There are times when this last one here, split between the logo, can work, or you have an arc between the logo, or above and below, an arc beside. The more distortion to letters, the higher risk of poor readability. But these are always the risks you have to take if you really want something in that shape. So I do have that little kind of emoji there at the bottom to suggest to try something away from that. But sometimes it can work. Again, this is your design, so this is something that should be purely all about you. Now I keep mentioning about responsive, and how that is going to adapt. I put a quick little preview here, and there'll be some links, we'll share with some of what we're showing today here, but then you can visit, and then the link, and make it move in your browser. Oh, thank you, it's been shared there. When you can have multiple versions, I see quite like this one here on the Heineken there. They take one kind of iconic aspect, and they keep that consistent throughout there. That can be very, very neat to be more than just adapted, but it has that little bit more interest that attaches to it. The Disney one is also quite good. The reason I come back to the Heineken one is their large format one is just so detailed, and for me it's a bit too much. But you will see at the end that my design approach is not on kind of the maximalist side. But all the other ones here, they're quite clean. And going back to, we talked about that silhouette. And that cleanliness is continued as it refines, it refines down. So responsive is always something that I would recommend you at least consider, at the very least, the extremes. And that's all, for example, like my logo has the extremes. It has a long format, and it has a very small format. So, and that would be fine. You don't have to have four here. This four is quite a bit. And we can see with most of these, their last two are, for the most part, just a scaled down version. But the test I would always say to everybody is will it work on a favicon? If you don't know what a favicon is, that little kind of icon in the address bar of your browser. We see that on the tab sometimes there. Very, very small. We usually design them at 32 by 32. It's a very, very small amount of space. It should still be legible at that small space. Some are more successful than others, but this is something we always want to think about. And something I cannot get away from, and this is something that, especially if you've been on kind of that design radar in the last few years, is this I will say the sickness of the sans serif sameness. And we're seeing this happen with a lot of brands, not just these brands I put right here, but just all over the world. So all these designs that were once, I'm not saying they were once the best, but they once had a lot of character to them. They had brand recognition, I would say, to them, and now everyone's going into this sans serif sameness, the sickness of the sans serif. And we're seeing, I was going to actually even add a few more of these, but I think we've got enough here. And it makes me think of the automotive industry as well, and they're not only going sans serif, they're also flattening out everything, removing a lot of the detail, and a simplification of the design is not necessarily a bad thing. It can be quite good, but an oversimplification or something like this where we look at this list here on both sides, we lost a lot of that kind of that that brand identity, like that recognition that a lot of people over the years they keep going back, and why is this happening? There could be any number of reasons. It could be uh, just restructuring coming in, and this is always a word when I see a designer coming in, the first thing they do is let's do a rebrand. No, 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 no. We don't need to do a rebrand. It's let's look at the branding itself. And see, does it even need a rebrand, or does it just need a small identity kind of rework? But this sans serif sameness, just like the jamming letters together, capital letters, lowercase letter, whatever it's going to be, this is okay. No one's going to get upset with you. It's your brand again, after all. But I would recommend to think outside of the box, go a little bit further than just this sans serif all the time. So you can be better than that, of course. Now, I've got a whole bunch of names here, and all kinds of typefaces. But I want to talk a little about going from that sans serif to the arrangement of text and the logo. Like we saw before, there's a different kind of arrangement, and here I'm just looking at logo and then text beside. And when you're looking at all the different typeface options, go much further than just what's in your operating system, what's on Typekit, anything like that. When you have that grayscale design, if you get to a logo and text, or if you're just going to be text, sometimes your logo is just words. You need to explore a lot of different options. So just take a moment here, and when you look at all these different versions here, I've got all caps on one side, and we've got capital and then lowercase and then all lowercase, and all lowercase is another. I'm not going to call it a sickness, not like the sans serif sickness, but I'm going to say it's something that did kind of pop up maybe last few years, and it does make, if when I'm looking at a lot of brands for big businesses especially, it takes some of the seriousness away from it, which can be, in my eyes, a bit of a negative. But if it's a person, it's just you as an individual. Sometimes this lowercase can be a little less kind of intense, a little bit more inviting, something like that there. But I can always go back to that same kind of thought. I do, a part of me go back to the same kind of thought, that it does have this overly casual look to it, and when I'm looking at that as a personal brand, your personal brand, you're thinking about it. If it's too casual, maybe you're not taking it very serious, and it's important that we take our craft, what we work on, quite serious. What's in your portfolio is a showcase of your skill set, what you've specialized in. Your brand is a showcase of yourself, and all that you want to convey with that. So when we think about the text, some of these, likely, and many of you have already seen, are not very legible. That just that readability score is just right down there in the bin, not very strong. And when we think about it, what I've done here is I've highlighted very quickly where we're getting that little bit of over casual look. And we think about these ones here on the bottom. The typeface is just so thin, and it's so casual there, like you've done it with a pen. It takes away again from a lot of that seriousness. And even there's just, this is just so basic. Did you even try? Did you look at anything beyond, a couple, maybe you just looked at your Google fonts? You are better than Google fonts. I know we can all always expand. There's nothing wrong with them, but we are not bound to the browser's limitations. Your branding is bound to just whatever you want to do. So you do not need to confine yourself just to what, your Google fonts or your OS fonts here. Now, the ones I put in red, legibility is incredibly low here. And again, you want to think back to, if that design is far away, if it was on a hat or a shirt, or the back of a piece of paper on a business card, but like people still give out business cards kind of thing. Um, if all those letters are just mushing together, then who can read it? And if we cannot read it, we lose our interest. We don't see that seriousness in it. But this is a risk. This is always a risk. I would say you want to always test at distance, step away, come back, show some folks come back and then see, can I still see this? Does this convey, going back to that brainstorm we had at the beginning, does it convey those aspects still? Not only in the design of the logo itself, if we have a logo, but in the typeface choice as well. So again, this is all options that you can. No one will stop you from going with the ultra casual, very low legibility, if that's what you really want. But we just want to, throw it out there to make sure that you have that little bit of background just in case. So let's go into the design process here. So I do want to be conscious of time here. The 6-to-1 method. This is something that I worked on. I kind of developed over the years with clients. And the core of the 6-to-1 method is, again, we're working in grayscale almost to the very, very end. The core is that you want to have a reaction all the time. If we're working with clients, I want them to have a reaction, yes or no. If they're not having that immediate reaction, we're not getting excited by this, then the design wasn't strong enough. That's really what it comes down to, design. And even for yourself, if you're not looking at that and say, yes, that one stands out, that one stands out, this one, I hate it. I thought it was good at the time, now I hate it. These are the reactions we want. And when you do your many sketches, 50, 60 sketches, 100 sketches, whatever it's going to be, you want to go through those pages, go through those screens, whatever you're working on there, and start to pick out, what are the ones that are standing out to me. And you keep picking it out, and you keep cutting, you keep picking, you keep cutting until we get down to 6. Now, why the number 6? Is something magic about 6? 6 is enough that it gives you enough options to really pick and be more picky. If we have 4, it's very limiting. If we have more than 6, it's too many. So this is something, especially with clients over the years, and this time you are your client. When you refine it just down to those 6, it gives you kind of enough choices, and you should be able to get it down to those 6, enough choices to step away, come back, and then you see which ones resonate right away. Now, I've kind of set these up a little bit so we can see 1, 2, 3 are a little bit similar. 4, 5, 6 are a little bit more, we would say maybe those are the experimental, the more abstract kind of versions there. But if you were to go and come back, maybe the abstract ones, these are now too different. They're too scary. They're too outside the box. And maybe in this case, 2 was too casual. And this is why we do this 6-to-1 method. If we go to all 6 and all 6 are okay, that wasn't a strong reaction. We need to have yes or no's all the time. This is great. This is not the one. This is the one. So when you get down to those next 3, we continue. We continue that process. And again, this needs to be a strong reaction. If the ones we pick are too similar, then it's going to be a lot harder to refine it down to the 3. Now, here we pulled out the abstract one, the one's a little bit different shape than the rounded one, and then we're going to refine it to what is left. And when we get down to those 3 again, this is where time is often your friend. You want to step away, come back. One of them hopefully sticks with you. Now, if one did not stick with you, then maybe 2 stuck with you. And now you cut that one away, and now you're down to 2. So it's not like you have to go from 6 to 3 to 1. You can go from 6 to 5, and you cut down, and now you're down to 5. And then you cut it down to 4, and then you cut it down to 3. You take the time you need to take, but you start with just those 6. And if you have two more than 6, it's going to be far too much. It's like being in the restaurant with 40 pages of food. It's who knows what to pick. So we want to limit our own options, and these are going to be very light sketches, nothing really refined, nothing put into Illustrator or anything like that yet. I would keep these nice and loose, done in Procreate, or done on any other kind of iPad sketching program, or on paper. Any of those would be fine, absolutely fine. Now, when you do get to this final one, this is where now we get to look at color. We get to start refining in Illustrator, start to vectorize it, start playing around with more typeface options. So we're going to be combining a lot of those typeface kind of testing there. Maybe you have to go through 10, 20, 100 different typefaces to get one that matches with the logo. And remember, when you do find that typeface, you will not use it as is. That typeface you will convert it to outline, and then you will modify and modify and modify. So this is kind of the core of the 6-to-1 method. You want to constrain, Give yourself a limited but diverse range with those six, and then come back, go away, come back, I should say, and then refine, refine, refine again until we get to just that one. So this is what has worked for many clients I worked with over the years, and developing their brands. I worked with myself developing it, and we go further from there when you want to test with a color. Like I said, we'll do a color maybe talk another time, but you want to always test in grayscale with color, because a large amount of the population is to 1% or completely colorblind. So we want to make sure that this is recognizable to everybody, or as many people as possible. And then think about how will it look on a light background, how will it look on a dark background, or will you go with a negative version? And some people call it negative, or they call it their grayscale. There's many different names for it, but this would be where your design is flattened and it's put into just a black and white state. If you're putting it onto, like I'm wearing a black shirt today, what if your graphic went onto a black shirt? But if it was a white shirt, it could be in color. Not everything always works, so you want to test. Do your web accessibility test, your color contrast test. These are classic tests here. They've been around for a long time. They don't have to be a perfect score, but they need to be definitely a high score there to make sure we have something that is as accessible to as many people as possible who may be viewing it again on your website or anything like that there. All right. So we're kind of getting to our ending time here. We're doing okay though. So that was quite a bit in a short time. So just a quick summary here is, like I said, you want to sketch a lot, brainstorm, don't rush the process. It's a mix of writing, research, exploration, and time going away and coming back. If you rush it, it will feel rushed, it will look rushed, it will be rushed, and you'll just have to refine it sooner. That is all. But you want to really do a lot. I think this is kind of the most important part, is doing a lot more sketches. Is a lot of times I see 5 or 6 sketches. It's 50, 60 sketches, a lot of sketches. If you're really hitting a roadblock, go back to where we started, go back into that writing stage and start really thinking, do I need to rework this? Do I need to come from a different angle? The writing part there, or you do it in mind maps, whatever it's going to be, that can be a great way to refresh and then come back and approach it with new eyes, a new hand there on the mouse or on the pen, whatever it's going to be, and then start working on that silhouette. So yeah, silhouette, silhouette, silhouette. So important all the time. Typography, explore, as mentioned, go beyond typekit. There's a lot of great typeface resources, and colors. 5 colors is really pushing it. Generally, 2 colors is kind of where we go there. They can be complementary, they can be contrasting. If you do use 5, we would have 2 kind of core colors, and then maybe 3 very small supporting colors. But the more colors it gets there, the closer we get to a clown shoe. We don't want to have a clown shoe as a graphic. We want to have a logo, something, a brand that resonates with people. All right, so as we wrap up here, as mentioned, I will show my own personal brand, something that I developed many years ago, and there's no horses here, no horses at all, and nothing that really attached directly to those answers I gave earlier, but they were part of that process. They were part of that process. I wanted something that reflected the kind of artwork I do. I still do a lot of artwork on my own. I wanted something more on the illustrative side, the creative side, something a lot more exploratorily but intense, which is why I went with such bold type choice there. I like something minimalism. I work in a lot of UX is traditionally what I work in with software most of the time. So this black and white works with me. I like that minimalist style, but I also like something that's kind of really out of the box. So this is how I came to my personal brand. How you come to your personal brand. I hope today will help you get at least started on that, get you into that thought process, the ideation stage, and then hopefully you can go through the 6-to-1 method that we went through today. And again, that's something that if you have to do it a couple times, there's nothing wrong with doing that. Again, this is just for you, so it should be something that you are quite happy with, even proud of at the end. It's okay to be proud of your design at the end there, to put on your website, to put on your social channels, to put on whatever it is that you want to have your brand as part of. And I've got my crest, or like I've shown there as a favicon there. It quite small. I put on many different kind of assets there, and even at a small scale, I still can see all those details. And that, when I see that, I go, okay, I did my work there. I got the spacing right, the details right, not too much or not too little, something that you want to hopefully reflect on in the end. So as we wrap up here, and thank you for joining us, those who have. This was a kind of an intense hour here, but that's what these master classes are kind of about. We hope to have more of these. We are part of the Web and Mobile Design and Development program at Langara College. And if you're interested in, a little bit what we talked about today, or you want, again, it's going to be on YouTube again, feel free to visit. We know what a lot of what our students do. They do just the most amazing work on their applications. You can visit us on our YouTube channel. If you are a prospective student, we have our admissions there. Or if you're interested in seeing what the students will do coming up, we always have 3 times a year a capstone showcase. And there's a great one coming up here shortly in April. So that will be great. April, August, December, we always have these capstone showcases from Web and Mobile. So that is it. Hit there right at the end. I see a lot here in the chat, some questions. So I'm going to leave it here for now. Maybe those who would have to log off, thank you for joining. No worries. If you did ask a question, I will try and answer your question here with a bit of haste as we wrap up. I'm gonna go through and just go through the questions quickly. I'll say the question, and then I'll try and answer it as quickly as I can. Do I suggest having a symbol within a word mark as a logo, or keeping them separate? The symbol within the word mark, this sounds like it might get a little bit busy, but I would try keeping them together all the time. And it reminds me a lot like a monograms, or even my design a little bit. The reason I would not want to have them separate is it can create some confusion. Is this your brand, or is this your brand? So I would try to kind of connect them together and have them always associated together. Let's see. There's a few about business. I'm just gonna focus them on personal branding for today. So another question here about personal branding and brand strategy. Do you have a portfolio? Should you keep them all under one identity or separate them? So this question is if you work in a bunch of different kinds of fields. So this individual has social media, they have some UI, UX, some design jobs, and then they're thinking of doing some freelancing. Would it be better to have them separate for business or under one site? Either would be okay. Myself, I would generally do it under one, because especially if you're a freelancer, this is just you. So your brand is just for you. This identity is just about you. If you separate them, is it the business, or is it the individual that I'm working with? Kind of similar to our previous question. You separate them, we create some confusion. Let's not confuse them. Let's make sure they know who to go to, what they go to you for, why they go to you for it, and they can always recognize and find that. We don't want to have them going to what is your business, and then this looks similar, but I'm not sure. So let's keep them together. It's generally my suggestion here. Why would brands opt for sans serif? Great question here. Maybe they lost their imagination. They lost some style. I'm gonna say they lost some confidence and style is what I'm gonna throw out there. The sans serif sickness is it's an epidemic at this point. It's in the design field. It's a bit much, and I like sans serif. It's a very clean, but maybe they're going that way to feel they want that to convey that modern look, that modern adaptability, that modern look. We are part of the future, but you go too far with that, and then we lose that little bit of, if they have that history, that little bit of individuality, we're going to lose some of that. So that could be the reason why. I would say be more outside the box, be a little bit different. Yes, and some comments in there about takes away the uniqueness, the creativity. Another question here. That was the last question there. Okay. Or no, there's one more question. Does anyone offer a copy of Masterclass? There's this video. But oh, we got one more question. Now, this would be our last question. How can I stay true to my personal brand while still adapting to the changing demands of the industry? So your personal brand, this can be to make it adaptable can be just the changing of the core design, just the small elements, kind of like how I did a small design change on mine. But it could be to move with the elements of the industry. You keep some aspects. So maybe your name or the name of your business, your personal company, whatever that's going to be, maybe that is the part that keeps that connection. Maybe you do keep that sans serif look. Mine is that same way. It's very bold. It's all caps to kind of convey that modern stability, that modern those roots in there. But then the other part is what changes. So that could be how you change that there. You don't change everything. You only change a percentage. And I think, yeah, that will be our last question there. Including okay, this one's actually not too bad. This will be the last question here. Significance of including typography with a personal brand. Again, I'm gonna go back to what I mentioned previously, is that when you have the text with the graphic, the logo itself, this gives us some connection. Maybe unless you're famous, you can have just the swoosh there, but until that point, until it's that globally recognizable, I think that myself, when we have the text and the graphic together, they come together to give us more clarity, communication, and then that we will develop over time that memorability to your core design. So I'm going to wrap up there. Thank you again to everyone for joining. Thank you, Langara and Web and Mobile, for putting this on. I hope that everyone enjoyed it and this was helpful and gives you a preview of a little bit what we do at Web and Mobile. Thank you, everyone.